Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video, which is the mid-year book tag. I have been doing this tag for every year that I've been making book videos on YouTube and I love doing it. I think it's so much fun. I also love watching other people do this tag as well. I feel like it's the best way to get a good summary and overview of people's reading years so far. I know I personally use it as a way to assess my reading goals and kind of check in at the midway point in the year and then kind of plan and redirect where I want to go for the second half of my reading year. So I'm really excited to answer all of these questions today. I'm going to be answering the same ones I have in years past. I know people have kind of expanded and added additional questions onto this tag, so I will be answering a few of those at the end. I'm going to put all of the questions to the tag in the description box below if you want to do the tag for yourself. I also think it'd be so fun if everyone commented their answers to the tag down below so we can chat about it and I can see everyone's answers and how your reading year is gone. So with that, I have a lot of questions to answer, a lot of books to chat about. So let's jump right in. The first question, starting out strong, is best book you've read so far in 2025. And that for me is The Wish by Nicholas Sparks, which if I saw myself answering this question with this book before I read it, I probably would be very surprised because I was really hesitant to pick this book up at first. This is the first and only Nicholas Sparks book that I have ever read, and I wasn't sure what I would think of his books because I've seen plenty of his movies that have been adapted from his books, but I never read any of his actual books. And I just didn't think they would be for me. I feel like his love stories are very like cliche, formulaic, big grand romantic gestures that feel kind of unrealistic. So I just didn't think I would really enjoy reading his books. But when people described this one, it sounded like there was a lot more to the story than just the romance. So I was very intrigued. I'd heard this recommended as a good book to read around Christmas time and the New Year. So I kind of missed my shot to read it at Christmas. So I decided I would make it one of the first books that I read this year and read it close to the New Year, and I'm so glad that I did. Basically, in this book, we follow our main character, Maggie, who is a travel photographer, and she runs her own gallery where she sells her photos, and she ends up connecting with this guy who recently got hired to help her and work at the gallery, and she starts telling him the story of a really profound Christmas in her past that had a lasting impact on her, and that ends up becoming our past timeline in the story. So we get a past and present timeline, which is always one of my favorite things in books. And it's like we got two amazing stories in one out of this book. I connected so deeply to both stories, to all the characters. I thought I had everything figured out when I was reading this book and knew the direction we were taking, but I could not have been more wrong because it completely blindsided me at the end, and it was the biggest sob fest. So prepare yourself if you want to read this one, but I would highly recommend it. It's my favorite book that I've read this year and the best book that I've read this year. I think it's going to be pretty hard to top. I definitely want to read more Nicholas Sparks after reading this one because I was just so impressed with his character development and his storytelling, and I really thoroughly enjoyed my time with this one and emotionally connected to it so deeply. The next question is best sequel you read so far in 2025, which this question is definitely a hard one for me to answer because I've continued on with a few series this year, but I feel like there's no sequels that really stand out to me or that I absolutely loved. So I'm gonna have to go with a sequel that is a reread for me, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I actually reread this on audio. I listened to the dramatized audiobook of this one in preparation for Onyx Storm, which I still need to finish. I'm like in the middle of it. I just put it down one day and never have had time to pick it back up, but I'm so glad I reread this one beforehand because there are just so many details that reading it a second time, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I missed that before. I just love everything about this book. I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion because a lot of people were let down by this one, but I could not disagree more. I feel like the romance in this is so strong as well as the fantasy aspects. I love the found family. I love all the characters. I love the storyline. I just feel like every single aspect of this book was done extremely well, and this is definitely by far my favorite in the series. I loved it way more than Fourth Wing, so we'll see if I feel the same after I finish Onyx Storm, but this is definitely one of my favorite sequels that I've ever read. It's gonna be hard to top, so I had to use this one as an answer to this question despite it being a reread. There is just no other sequel that I read this year that has even come close. I just have so much love for this series and this book especially. The next question is new releases you haven't read yet but want to, and I definitely have quite a few. The first one that comes to mind is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I actually did a reread of Carly Fortune's debut novel Every Summer After in preparation for this book because we follow a character in One Golden Summer that we met in Every Summer After. So this is Charlie's book, which was one of the brothers from her debut novel. I'm so glad I did a reread of Every Summer After. I don't think I necessarily needed to, but I have no idea when One Golden Summer takes place. So I just wanted to do a reread so all the details of Charlie and the backstory of his character were fresh in my mind before going into One Golden Summer. And I have been hearing the best things about this book, so I cannot wait to read it. Definitely want to pick it up before summer is over because it sounds like the perfect summer read. The next new release I'm so excited for and still need to pick up is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is set in the 80s and the backdrop is the NASA space shuttle program, which is so fascinating to me. I love all things space and NASA related, so I feel like this is going to be one I'm really going to enjoy, and I've been hearing rave reviews for this book as well, so can't wait to read it. Need to pick it up soon, just haven't made the time to. And I also need to get to Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford. This is the final book in her Windy City series, which I've absolutely loved, and this book in particular is probably my most highly anticipated because it is Rio's book. And from the moment we met Rio in the first book of this series, I was like, I'm obsessed. I cannot wait for his story because he is our comedic relief golden retriever character, which is my favorite kind of MMC in a romance, and this is also a hockey romance. So I am really excited for this one. Again, just haven't made the time to pick it up yet. I'm feeling like since it's hockey romance, I don't know if I'm really feeling that during the summertime. I might push it back a little bit, but I'm really excited to read it when I do. Just sad that the Windy City series is coming to a close. Next question is most anticipated new release for the second half of the year, and I have two books to answer this question with. The first one is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. This book actually comes out this week, so it'll probably already be out by the time this video goes up, and I cannot wait for this one. Jessa Hastings is the author of the Magnolia Park series, and she released another book outside of that series in April, so I was not expecting anything new from her in a while. I feel like no one was, and then she randomly dropped this announcement that she was releasing this book and that it's the start to a duology. And this book sounds right up my alley. It's set in the 90s and it's actually inspired by my favorite band, Oasis. Our male main character is a bad boy rock and roll star, so you cannot tell me that he is not Liam Gallagher coded because he just seems like him to a T. And then our FMC is a model, so it's kind of giving like angsty, toxic vibes a little bit. I feel like it's going to be more similar to Magnolia Parks than her last release was, which I am so here for. I cannot wait. I just have such a good feeling about this book. I feel like I'm really going to enjoy it. And the next new release I'm excited for, which comes out later in the fall, is Soul Searching by Lila Sage. Lila Sage is the author of the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which are small town, western, cowboy romances. Soul Searching sounds kind of similar. It sounds like small town western vibes, but also kind of different because there are ghosts involved somehow, so it has like a paranormal element to the book, which I cannot wait. I love that this is coming out in the fall time because it sounds perfect for spooky season, so definitely want to read it around then. The next question is biggest surprise of 2025, and I have two books to answer this question with in two different ways. One is a more pleasant surprise and the other is surprising in the way that I thought I would love it and it ended up being a bit of a disappointment. So let's start with the good first. My pleasant surprise is In an Instant by Suzanne Redfern. I got this as a blind date with a book. I did a reading vlog reading 3 blind dates with 3 different books from 3 different genres, and this book was exactly what I hoped would happen out of doing that video. I had never heard of this book before, never seen it, went in completely blind and ended up absolutely loving it, and now I love that I can be the first to maybe recommend it to you guys if you also have never heard of it before. So in this book we follow our main character Finn, and she and her family and a few of their family friends are all loaded up in this camper and they go to the mountains for the weekend to stay in this cabin, and they end up getting in a horrible wreck on the side of the mountain. It's like midwinter, very snowy, not the best of conditions. Everyone is in really bad shape after the accident, but our main character Finn ends up not surviving, and from there she ends up becoming our kind of like all-knowing narrator, and we get to see different dynamics between this group of characters and explore different secrets. And this dire situation really brings out the best and the worst in some of these characters, and you're really seeing, as the title says, how everything changes in an instant, and it was just so impactful to me. I loved the story, I loved the narration style, I loved exploring these different dynamics, and it was just very emotional. It had some uplifting moments and also some heartbreaking moments as well, so I just was not expecting to love this one because I hadn't heard anything about it, but I was hoping I would, so it ended up being a very pleasant surprise. As for my disappointing surprise, that's gonna have to go to Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I read this book also for a reading vlog where I attempted to finish reading books I had DNF'd in the past. And I DNF'd this one previously, not because I wasn't enjoying it. It was more so I just read a few chapters, put it down, and then had other books I needed to get to first. So I never picked it back up again until filming this reading vlog. And I think with this book, I just went in with the highest of expectations. I thought I was gonna give this book like 5 stars or at least a very high rating because of all the hype this book gets. I feel like everyone is obsessed with this book, and for me, I just didn't really connect with it. I found the characters to be just like overly cringy, overly cheesy, and I think what I realized since reading a few other YA romances after this one, YA romance is cheesy, but if I connect with it and the characters are written in a realistic way, it's cheesy in a good way. To me, I think the characters in this book weren't written realistically. They almost felt like caricatures of high school students, so it came off as not really realistic and I couldn't really connect with it. So it leaned into like the cheesiness in a cringy way, which just wasn't the best time for me. There were fun moments in this book, like I really liked the storyline and there were some really cool scenes that kind of read like a movie, which I think was the intent with this book. But I don't know, maybe it was just because my expectations were so high and they weren't met. I gave this book a 3.75 stars initially, which is not a bad rating at all, but the more I think back on it and the more YA romance I have read since reading this one, I probably would lower that rating a little bit. It's more like a 3.5 star rating, which is also not bad at all, but just going in with high expectations thinking this could be a 5 star, it was a bit of a disappointing surprise for me. Next question is favorite new author, either debut or new to you. And for this one, I'm gonna say a co-writing duo. We have Audrey Beleza and Emily Harding. They are the authors of Emma of 83rd Street, which I read a couple months ago. I just really loved their writing style. This is a retelling of a Jane Austen book, Emma, and it's the start to a series where they retell other Jane Austen books as well. And I just thought this was such a good and fun way to get the story of a classic in a more contemporary setting, and it made me really connect with it. I loved the way Emma's character was written. She felt very realistic because we see lots of different sides to her personality. We see her flaws and her strengths, which made her feel like a really real character that came off the page. I also loved the way this slow burn romance was written. I thought it was done really, really well, and the ending of the book set up the next book in the series, which I believe is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. So it made me want to definitely continue on with the series and read more from them because I really enjoyed their writing style and I just really connected with it. The next question is newest fictional crush, which was kind of a hard one to answer this year because I haven't had too many book boyfriends I've read about that I've been obsessed with, but there is one that definitely takes the cake, and that's gonna be Xavier from Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I remember when I first heard about this book, I was a little bit skeptical, specifically of the MMC because he was described as grumpy. And normally what I love about Abby Jimenez and her romances is the male main characters are more golden retriever, which is definitely the kind of MMC I prefer to read about in my romances. So I was like, I don't know how I feel about him being the grumpy character and our FMC being the sunshiny character. But once you get to know Xavier and learn his backstory and why he is the way he really isn't that grumpy of a guy, and he definitely turned around and ended up being very sweet and very endearing. He is definitely the definition of if he wanted to, he would, which I feel is the case with most of Abby Jimenez's male main characters. He would just move mountains to make this relationship work. He did so much for Samantha, and I was just amazed at the lengths he went to make it work and to put her first. I just thought it was so sweet and the definition of true love and soulmates, and he just won me over and made this a book that I really, really loved. The next question is a book that made you cry, and I'm gonna have to repeat a book for this answer because there's no other book that has really made me cry the way this one has. If you've read a Nicholas Sparks book before or even seen a movie that's been adapted from his books, you will know that there is definitely an emotional part to his stories and they are tearjerkers. This one, I kind of thought I knew where things were going and the direction we were taking, but I ended up being blindsided and things happened that I was not expecting at all, which made it the biggest sob fest. I was like uncontrollably crying at the end of this book, which really made me realize how attached I was to these characters, how emotionally invested and connected I was. It definitely left such an impact on me, and I think that's part of what makes me realize it is the best book I've read so far this year because it could evoke such a deep emotional response for me. So there is no competition. This is definitely the book that has made me cry the most this year. And on the flip side of that, we have a book that made you happy. That is The Lost Ticket by Freya Sampson. In this book, we follow our main character, Libby, who has just moved to London and ends up meeting this older man on a double-decker bus one day. And he is telling her this story of back when he was a boy, he met a woman on the same bus and he got her number. They were going to go on a date, but he ended up losing the slip of paper that had her number on it. So he has spent his whole life riding this bus trying to find this mystery woman that he was supposed to go on a date with. And it is just the most endearing and heartwarming story. You see this group of unlikely characters coming together to help this man find his long lost love, and it really makes you realize that people have more similarities than they do differences. I feel like this was definitely one of those books that will restore your faith in humanity, because you meet all these different characters from different walks of life, and when you first are introduced to them, some of them don't give off the best first impression, but then you kind of learn why they are the way they are, why they do the things they do, and where they're coming from, and so you really empathize with them, you really connect with them, and I just love seeing them all come together. It was so uplifting, so heartwarming, made me so happy, and made me want to read more from this author because I absolutely love this one. The next question is most beautiful book you bought or received this year. For that question, I'm going to go with The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. Her covers hit every single time. I'm pretty sure her best friend designs the covers, but what I love most about them is not only are they just beautiful to look at, but once you start reading the book, you pick up on different symbols and like why different things are on the cover, and you learn the meaning behind them, and you realize they're not just there for aesthetics, they actually have purpose and value, and they're kind of like hidden Easter eggs that you learn as you read and uncover different things about the characters and in the story. So I love her covers. For me, they hit every single time. I also love the unfinished edges to the pages in this book, which I know a lot of people aren't fans of, but I personally love it. I feel like it gives it a used, loved look. So yeah, I feel like Jess's books are always going to be some of my favorite covers, some of the most beautiful. This is definitely the most beautiful one that I bought this year. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I definitely need to do a better job at sticking to the TBR I set at the beginning of the year, my 25 books I want to read in 2025. I've read a few books on that list, but definitely need to do a better job at sticking to it. I also made a video talking about the new releases I wanted to read this year, which I touched on earlier. There's a few I still need to get to, but aside from those, there is a recent release that keeps popping up that is definitely now on my radar, and I am so intrigued by it. I feel like the more I hear about it, I keep seeing good reviews and I'm more and more intrigued. That is The Compound, but this is just getting described as being a combination of Love Island and Lord of the Flies, which I'm so here for, and I feel like with Love Island coming to an end very soon, I'm definitely going to want something to fill that void, so I think this is going to do it for me. Definitely want to read this during the summer. I feel like that is a good time to read this one, so I want to pick it up soon, and I have a good feeling. I think I'm going to enjoy it. Okay, that is it for the questions to the original tag. Now for the additional questions added on. The first one is, what books do you want to reread this year? I am not the biggest rereader. I feel like it's hard for me to justify going back and rereading my favorite books as much as I would love to do that. I just have so many on my TBR, whether it be backlist books or new releases that I'm anticipating. It's just hard for me to justify picking up and rereading something I've already read before. I feel like the one time I do justify rereads is if there's like a sequel coming out and I need a refresher on a previous book in a series, but there is one book I feel I'm gonna want to reread soon for good reason, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. We recently got a release date for the film adaptation. It's coming out next January, which I know is kind of surprising for a lot of people, myself included. I definitely thought it would get a summer release date, but I feel like that is good timing to do a reread of this book during the summer and then watch the movie in January. I feel like that gives enough time to where I'm not going to be like comparing everything and just really noticing all the differences between the movie and the book. I feel like it's enough space in between to where I get a refresher of this one, but not enough to where I'm like super critical of the movie. This is my favorite Emily Henry book. I feel like that's an unpopular opinion. I know this book didn't work for a lot of people, but I personally love it so much. I feel like it makes me kind of scared to reread this one in case I don't love it as much as I did the first time around, but I would love to reread it while it is still summertime and before the movie comes out next year. The next question is favorite author so far this year, and that for me has got to be Abby Jimenez, which is probably not a surprise if you've been here. I consistently love her and her books. I read her Valentine's Day novella earlier in the year called The Fall Risk and thoroughly enjoyed it. I was so impressed with how she could put so much depth into such a short novella. And then same thing goes for her new release that came out this year. It got a lot of mixed reviews, so I wasn't sure how I would feel, but she never fails to impress me. I love the way that she combines the emotional aspects to a romance that give it so much depth. She will have me swooning, crying, laughing. She does the comedic aspects to the rom-com so well, so I just think she combines all elements perfectly to make a romance that really comes to life for me, jumps off the page. So I just love her and her books and her writing style so much. I connect with them every single time, so she has continued to be a favorite author for me. I will continue to keep picking up every single thing that she writes. A book you enjoyed with mixed reviews, going back to Abby Jimenez and Say You'll Remember Me, her release from earlier this year. I love this book so much. It was a 5-star for me, but I know that's not the case for a lot of people. I've seen 1-star reviews. I've seen 2, 3, 4, every single rating across the board for this book. It is just getting so many mixed reviews, and I completely understand why. I can see people's perspective who didn't love this one and who it didn't work for. The trope in here, insta-love, is definitely my least favorite trope, so I can see where it wouldn't work for a lot of people, but I think Abby Jimenez made it work really well, so I still loved it. I think the biggest critique a lot of people had of this book was all the pop culture references, which, to be honest, I wish I could take that out of the book. That's probably the only thing I didn't love about it, but I was just loving everything else about the book so much that I could overlook the TikTok references, the ACOTAR references. Even though it was cringy, I still had the best time with everything else, and I loved the book. But I will say, compared to some of her more recent releases, this book is not my favorite when compared to those. It is still a 5-star, but it's not like at the 6-star level as some of her books like Just for the Summer and Yours Truly have been for me. Maybe because of those cringy things. I think that definitely has something to do with it. I completely see where people are coming from when they say this book did not work for them. The next question is books you've been putting off, and for that one I'm gonna say Happy Place by Emily Henry. I have this thing with Emily Henry and her books where each one of her books I've taken on a different vacation with me, so I associate that book with that specific vacation, and I feel like because I hold her books in such high regard and she's one of my favorite authors, it just makes the books that much more special to me. So Happy Place I have been saving. It is the only one of her books I have not yet read, so I've been putting it off. I know this book is set in Maine, which I have been dying to take a trip to Maine during the summer. I was hoping it would happen this year. I'm not so sure if it's going to, so I've been saving it for that. I think it's gonna happen at some point, just not sure when, but I am dying to read this book because I have a good feeling about it. I think I'll really connect with it and love it, but that is why I have not read it yet. I have just been saving it for a potential trip I might go on so I can bring this one with me to read it. Series you want to finish before the end of the year? I would definitely love to finish the Boys of Tommen series. I stopped after book 3, so I still need to continue on starting with book 4. I think for me, books 1 and 2 I just loved so much. Johnny and Shannon, the couple we follow in those books, I love their romance, I love their story, I connected with them so deeply. And then when it came to book 3 and following a new couple, Joey and Eva, I loved and adored them, but just didn't connect quite as much as I did with Johnny and Shannon's story. So I know in this book, Redeeming 6, we're following Joey and Eva yet again, and it's the conclusion to their story, so I've been putting it off a little bit for that. Also, this is just such a lengthy one, and these books are very emotionally heavy, so I have to be in the right headspace for it. I think with the recent release of books 5 and 6 in this series, I've heard so much buzz about them, and I want to know what people are talking about, so definitely want to continue on and finish this series before the end of the year. 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. I don't want to put too high of expectations on any of the books I'm planning to read. I think the only one I feel comfortable and safe enough to say that I do feel it will be a 5-star is the new release I talked about earlier, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Just based on what it's about, being set in the 80s and the backdrop being the NASA Space Shuttle program, which is something I'm so interested in. And I feel it's very similar to other Taylor Jenkins Reid books that I've rated 5 stars as well. I do feel confident enough to say I think that will be a 5-star for me, so I'm very anxious to pick that one up soon and see if it lives up to the hype and to my expectations, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it is a 5-star read for me. I have a good feeling. Do you think you'll reach your reading goal, or are you going to change it? So at the beginning of the year, I set my reading goal at 100 books. At this point in time, I've read 39 books, so if I was to be on track with meeting my reading goal of 100 books, I would need to be at about 50 books at the halfway point in the year, so I am behind. I'm not gonna change my goal though, just because I still want to shoot for reading 100 books. I feel like for me, as someone who makes book content, that is a good number to reach for, just because it gives me enough books to be able to talk to you guys about, to be able to recommend to you guys. So I still want to shoot for 100. I will say realistically, I think I'm going to end up being in like the high 80s, maybe low 90s, unless I just really get back on track with reading some fast-paced books, some short books, pick up a bunch of audiobooks to catch back up. Then I could possibly get back on track. I still really want to try to read 100 books this year. I'll be so proud of myself if I do. But I think reading any number of books in a year is an accomplishment in itself and something to celebrate. So I'm not disappointed at all that I'm behind on my goal that I set. I think 100 is kind of crazy. Like, that's a lot of books to read, but that's what I do. That's what I love. That is my main hobby. So I'm still gonna push myself to reach 100 books, but if it doesn't happen, I am not gonna be upset at all. I'm still so proud of myself for how many books I have read. Any new goals for the rest of the year? Yes, definitely one thing I've noticed as I've been like assessing my reading so far this year and kind of checking in and reflecting is I have filmed lots of haul videos this year, lots of TBR videos. So I'm spending a lot of time talking about books that I want to read and buying new books versus actually reading the books that I do have and making reading vlogs. So I want to spend more time reading books versus talking about reading books and buying books before I get to the books that I already have. I know all of those things are different hobbies in themselves, all of which I enjoy, but I do want to be more mindful of taking more time to read. I know my schedule has been crazy busy, so I'm making as much time as I can for reading, but I feel like I definitely have been guilty of like scrolling on my phone for way too long when I could be using that time to read the books on my TBR. So that is a very rambly, long-winded way of telling you guys my reading goal for the second half of the year. So that's going to conclude this mid-year book tag. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for being here however long you've been with me on my reading journey. I appreciate all the love and support. If you're new, I would love for you guys to stick around by hitting the subscribe button down below, and if you did enjoy watching this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. As I mentioned, all the questions to this tag are going to be in the description box below, so do the tag if you'd like. Comment below with your own answers so we can chat about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all so very soon in my next video. Bye guys.